You're not allowed to express any concern. That's unthinkable. To hear that whites are on their way to minority status and the white population is declining.
He is that Hartman skit from South Park, eh?
I am not going to become a minority. I will never become a minority.
Like, so scared. What happens? It's that, like, you know, deep-seated white supremacist fear. What if they treat me the way I treated them all along? Matt Walsh. Whites are trending towards extinction in the United States. Daily Wire host Matt Walsh says the preservation of the hummingbird community is more important than the preservation of the white race.
All right, The Hill has this report. Generation Z will be the last generation of Americans with a white majority, according to census data. The nation's so-called majority minority arrived with Generation Alpha, those born since 2010. Who, by the way, of course, get the best generation name. It's going to be many, many centuries until anyone gets to have a generation name.
Yes, I'm Jolt. Thank you.
As good as that. Feel really bad for the generation that comes after Generation Alpha. They get a raw deal in a lot of ways, but also given what their name is going to be. Anyway, barely 2 decades from now, around 2045, non-Hispanic white people will fall below half as a share of the overall U.S. population. Those conclusions and the numbers behind them seem simple enough, yet some scholars contend that the numbers are wrong.
Once again, by the way, because, again, under white supremacy, there is racial and racialization between the whites, because after all, there are the good whites and the bad whites. They change over time, by the way. If you happen to be one of the good whites right now, ooh, your days are numbered, my friend. Yeah, I know. I used to count myself amongst them, and then before they realized that I wasn't among us because I'm a little too native, so that part, you know, I wouldn't pass the bar on that end. But yeah, for the non-Hispanic whites, you know, those are the purest of the whites, the purest of the pure. So for y'all, oh man, apparently your numbers are dwindling too.
Or at least misleading, on that the looming ascent of a majority-minority America is a myth. America's white majority in its numbered days is a lightning rod topic, given...
What side are Italians? Italians, you're white now. You just whiteified. Congratulations. Welcome to the white race. So good. It's been a long journey, you know. Same with the Irish, you know. It was a troubled journey as well, with a lot of, obviously, discrimination along the way. But hey, you made it. Welcome to whiteness.
The nation's history of slavery and enduring patterns of discrimination against minorities and immigrants. Demographers and economists celebrate the nation's growing diversity as vital to a prosperous future. Other voices vilify racial change as a threat to the nation's white heritage. So, you know, this...
Are Indians considered white now? Well, I guess the model minority is certainly moving both what the white supremacists believe to be members of the white race. You know, they'll always talk about a lot of their own strange prejudices in that regard, right? And saying, well, you have to respect the fact that the majority of tech company CEOs happen to be, you know, families of Indian descent and stuff like that. And so they're certainly doing their best. They're doing their best to whiteify.
Very objective news report. Those are the two options that they give you. So... you can either, when you look at the disappearance of white people, you can either celebrate diversity and a prosperous future, so that's the one, so you're celebrating it, or you can vilify racial change. Those are the two options. There's no other way of looking at it, according to The Hill and any other media report. And so there are really two parts of the story. The first is the story itself, which is the demographic trend, where whites are trending towards extinction in the United States. Like that's the way it's headed. And then the other part of the story is the veil of silence around this issue, the wall that is erected around it.
Why can't we talk about this? Yeah. Seems those brave enough to do so. Stormfront. They have a counter. There's an anti-white counter on Stormfront. They show you how quickly the white race is being genocided. Yeah, they have a white race genocide countdown clock. They're the only ones willing to be brave enough to do that. Otherwise, people call you things like white supremacists and shit.
I know you're going to say, well, you just read a story about it, so there's not a silence. Yeah, they can report on it. So you report and you celebrate diversity, and then you just move on. We don't talk about it. We don't think much about it, and that's it. You aren't allowed to talk much about it. You certainly can't be concerned about it. You're not allowed to express any concern. That's unthinkable. To hear that whites are on their way to minority status, and the white population is declining.
He is that fucking Cartman skit from South Park, eh?
I am not going to become a minority. I will never become a minority.
Like, so scared. What happens? It's that, like, you know, deep-seated white supremacist fear. What if they treat me the way I treated them all along? Okay, so the tables have turned. You're not gonna do the stuff that I was doing to you, are you? You're not like gonna over police me, or you're not gonna over incarcerate me, or you're not gonna actually flip the entire standards of beauty so that, like, the more white you are, the less desirable you are, and so that there's this actual scale, you know, colorism. You're not gonna do that, but inverse it, right? So, because I'm pretty damn white, I'd have to really, you know, dye my skin a darker color to be able to achieve those standards of beauty that actually happened thanks to colonization. So you're not gonna do that, right? The inverse of it all, are you? I hope not.
The worst thing you could possibly do is to talk about it at all is already a problem, but to suggest that there's any reason at all to be concerned about that, or to be anything less than thrilled by that development is incredibly racist, we're told. So all you can do, I saw some libertarian, of course, reacting to this on Twitter just now, and this news from the Hill, and saying, "Oh, this is great. I don't see any problem with this. Who could possibly have a problem with it? Who cares if whites are going extinct in America? What difference does it make? I'm a libertarian. I don't understand anything."
By the way, this is why, like, Matt Walsh, he's pretty intense, right? He's a theocratic fascist. He's a straight up white supremacist asshole who talks about this kind of shit. And he wants to flirt with this a lot harder. Like, the guy, he hung out with neo-Nazis. The old video footage of Matt Walsh when he used to judge diaper wrestling competitions amongst adults. So he would take two grown adults, they would dress in diapers, they would wrestle each other, and then he would declare a winner. That's like the old Matt Walsh, right? And the old Matt Walsh was a literal book burner with neo-Nazis. He would actually put his books on, like, barbecues and try to light it on fire and shit like that. So that's who Matt Walsh is. And, like, you won't find a lot of other right-wing pundits of this popularity who use terms like the superiority of the Anglo-Saxon race. Like, when you hear that, like, that's straight up a Klan meeting, you know? When someone's like, "Oh, we have to fight for the superiority of the Anglo-Saxon." Oh, shit, did you say Anglo-Saxon? Damn. Oh, you got some old-timey racism up in here. And yet he's quite famous. He's quite famous due to being obviously just one of the worst voices in the room when it comes to transphobia. So that's allotted him and awarded him more status. But I don't think everyone knows how bad Matt Walsh is. And every now and then, I mean, you know, a white supremacist is only going to sit back for so long and see what's going on sometimes. See maybe a very veiled amount of like equality being achieved sometimes. It's like, hey, it's not so much we're taking anything away from you. We're just not going to take as much away from someone else. Then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, well, this is white genocide. That's what this is.
That's the only attitude you're allowed to have. But here's what we know also. We know that it doesn't even need to be said, but I'll say it anyway, because we all know that's true. But we know that the continued existence of any other race of people is considered deeply important. And the preservation of the historical and traditional racial identity of any nation is considered deeply important. You know, so for example, if there was an influx of white immigration to a historically black country, and that was resulting in a giant demographic shift wherein
so, like, there's a little bit of history involved in North America, namely the colonization of indigenous people, right? So there were people who already lived here and continued to live in North America prior to the arrival of colonization on the behalf of a lot of countries in the West, you know, whether that be Spain, Italy, Britain, France as well, you know, all doing their bit, all grabbing what land they can. Yeah, that did result in very large demographic shifts. In fact, what happened was there was a majority, almost an exclusive majority of indigenous people who lived in North America, and estimates go anywhere between, you know, conservatives sometimes in the 15 to 20 million, all the way up to 80 to 90 million individuals who unfortunately died in large part due to diseases that were brought over by the colonizers. Now, you could look at that as indigenous genocide, and you could say that the indigenous population was then effectively very intentionally replaced with white people, you know? That's not a conspiracy theory that you're worried about happening in real time. That's just history. That's just what happened, you know? And in large part, it also created new groups of people. This is why we do have individuals who sometimes are considered, like myself. I'm mixed race, even though I'm white as fuck, right? But the Métis people, I mean, they were known as the half-breeds in Canada. We were a combination of either Cree and French or Scottish settlers in this country. But we had our own language, which is pretty cool. But again, Matt Walsh talking about this in the modern era, trying to flip everything into this weird kind of like 180 of the issue, being like, oh, well, now we find ourselves, there are less Western whites, you know, the good kind, the kind I prefer.
It was becoming a predominantly white country rather than predominantly black. This would be considered a major, major problem. And there's no doubt about it. And yet, in the reverse, it is either neutral or cause for celebration. But really, it should be a cause for celebration. And you know what? This pertains even to the animal kingdom. I mean, you could think about it, there's a particular type of, I don't know, hummingbird.
That's really telling, by the way. He does see people of different races as distinctly different animals, which, again, race doesn't exist. It's all cosmetic. It's 100% cosmetic. Basically, based on, like, things, and you wouldn't, like, to put it in perspective, would you characterize human beings based on eye color? Would you say, well, this is one group, those are the green eyes, this is another group, those are the blue eyes, then we got the gray eyes, then the brown eyes, right? These are different groups of people, classifications. You're like, no, that's just cosmetic, because they're just different colored eyes. They're still all people though, right? So that's what we did with race. Yeah, different qualities of quantities of melanin, more or less, you know, different shapes and sizes of noses, ears, mouths, stuff like that. All cosmetic, but all humans, all human beings across the board, not different animals.
That's going extinct. Even for that, we're supposed to panic. And if I were to say, hey, whatever, I mean, what does it matter? So we don't have that type of hummingbird. We got plenty of other hummingbirds. What does it matter what type of hummingbird it is? The difference doesn't make. So you got this type of hummingbird is there's more of that, then there's less of this. Like, who cares? If I
Blue eyes didn't exist until 8,000 years ago. I didn't know that. Oh, I learned something.
say that, I'm callous. Because no, it's very important that we have all varieties of hummingbirds. Every variety is very, very important. We have to keep them all around. Every animal in the animal kingdom, we got to keep them all around. It's extremely important. If any particular variety starts to dwindle, if any particular type of species of animal gets driven out of its territory, it's a very bad thing.
Again, so that kind of shows you that Matt Walsh, he thinks of different races of people, these categories of being just distinct and different animals. Let's talk a little bit about racism. Okay. White supremacist power structure requires racial subjugation of other groups. This is where some people get confused, but I'm going to try and help out the Matt Walshes of the world or anyone else who's confused about this. Which is why whiteness changes over time. White people can be bigoted towards other white people, and non-white people can be bigoted towards other non-white people. That's the last part that I don't think people understand, because sometimes you might get this idea where it's like, hey, well, yes, I understand that under a white supremacist power structure, you can have non-white people who will hold it up, right? That's where you get people, say like a Candace Owens, for example, who will uphold white supremacy and white supremacist power structures while not being white herself. But you can also have white people who subjugate other white people. The way that white people subjugate other white people look a lot towards the history of what is white in Europe. What are the Roma people? And are Roma people respected as their own individual category of white people? Are they treated the same as other white people? Has there been the subjugation of Roma people specifically because of these reasons? What is considered white? Are certain different variations of whiteness in European categories considered to be exotic, right? Can you have someone who's like, oh yes, to you, a Westerner, you might see a room full of white people, but a lot of those white people hate the other white people at that table because they think of them as lesser than. They're not considered the true white white people. Why is that? Because whiteness changes. Whiteness as a concept, white supremacist power structures, that which is or which is not white can change. It's fluid. And there is certainly different points in time, Irish, Italians, for example, who were not considered white in North America. This is why someone, and that's the reason I showed you that sketch, someone like Barack Obama can actually be half white, but he's always considered black in America. Someone can be 1/8 black and they're considered black in America. It's the one drop rule, right? This is one of the reasons why you had things like blood quantum, for example, and how much someone is considered to be or not to be white at any given time based on that. Again, whiteness, it as a concept, that's what needs to be destroyed. That's what needs to be eradicated. That's what needs to be eliminated. Yes, whiteness, the concept. Now, that's not saying that, hey, if you happen to have peachy, rosy skin, you should be eliminated from the face of the earth. Like, I think I wouldn't fare very well. I'm quite peachy myself, you know? There's a lot of peachiness going on here, so all that being said, I'm not advocating for the elimination of white people from the planet. No. And I find a lot of people who say that kind of stuff, it's usually because they've got the whole inverse, like they see the world through the eyes of the way that white supremacists have been doing it, which is to subjugate other people and races. And so their only way to understand that is like, so you're going to do that too, right? You're going to do that thing, that whole genocide stuff if you get power, because that's what was done before. So it's only a matter of time, right? But it's hierarchies. It's absolute hierarchies. Not only the concept, but the material effects that this concept result in need to be dismantled and destroyed. Because we could talk all day about how race is a social construct. I say that as a white person with all the benefits, you know, I say that as a white person who's typically, by the way, not often, you know, treated differently because of my skin. Whereas I do have indigenous friends who are visibly indigenous. When they walk into Shoppers Drug Mart, oh, the security guard follows them all around. Doesn't matter what they're doing. I could be in the other side, you know, and then using my whiteness to fucking fill my pockets with every sausage I can get my hands on. You know, oh, I'll steal all the sausages. And then at the end of the day, it's like, yeah, it's a good thing you did that, Lance, because they weren't going after you. They never even looked in your pockets. Your pockets are full of sausages. Look at this. And then it's like, yeah, my pockets are full of sausages because I was using my privilege to steal. But that's like, you know, the reality of the situation is that, yeah, I can talk about all day how, hey, by the way, everybody, just so you know, race is a social construct. It is. It's made up. We made it up. It's cosmetic. It's based on nonsense. It's not scientific. All made. It's all up here. All in the mind, right? That doesn't do anything to help people who are racially oppressed. Like the understanding of that. It's like, neat, cool. Well, that sucks more. That's worse. So you're saying that I'm treated differently, that I have a different lived experience because of a thing that we made up that isn't even real? Yeah. When you put it like that, that is kind of brutal. That's, yeah. Sorry about that whole. I mean, I didn't do it personally. It's been going on for a while, well before my time. But you are right. That does suck. Yeah, we should probably do something about that. So I'd say not only should you be aware of the theory, such as race is a social construct, thumbs up, gold star, but we should also be working to improve the material conditions of people who are racially subjugated, because that sucks, right? Like, improve the material conditions of indigenous people in Canada, because they've been racially subjugated their entire lives. Doesn't matter if they're born now, you know, post a lot of the worst aspects, you might say, of a lot of these programs. They're still alive today. They're still impoverished. There's still really high rates of drug addiction. There's still really high rates of poverty, child poverty, all that kind of stuff. And there's still very high rates of the government of Canada taking their children away from them, putting them into foster programs, and then those kids getting molested and stuff like that. So it's all still happening. So I agree with programs that spend billions of dollars to try and improve the material conditions, especially of children, of Indigenous kids in Canada. That's a good thing. Same thing. I am fully on board with reparations in the United States. And if you want to say, well, hey, how do you pick and choose? I'm a white person born today. I've never owned slaves. Why would you give certain people money for things that happened before they were born? It's like, all right, well then how about we take race out of this, and then we just say we will put a whole bunch of money into impoverished communities. Then what happens? Then what happens in America? If I wanted to put a whole bunch of money into improving the conditions of children across the country, where's a lot of that money going to go to then if we were to pick some of the poorest communities? Weird how those two lines intersect, isn't it? But sure, yeah, I took race out of it. There you go. And then a whole bunch of impoverished communities are now getting the funding they may need to move forward, you know? I will cut this from the VOD later. Yeah, take it. Take it all. Matt Walsh is also kind of flailing all over the place right now. He's really mad at this new study that just came out. The study that showed that apparently a very low percentage of people who have mastectomies as a result of gender-affirming care, they have very low regret rates. Now, what this study did show was that of those who decided to respond, the rate of regret was less than 1%, I believe, of those who decided to respond. Only one candidate had doubts. Everyone else who decided to respond were very happy. They were all like, hell yeah, this was a very good thing. Now, Matt Walsh is picking it apart saying, well, this study, apparently, a lot of people decided not to respond at all. So checkmate, I have debunked you. First of all, the study relying on self-reported data from 139 patients at one single hospital, none of whom were adults wearing diapers. Some of the patients were only 2 or 3 years out of surgery. They would have all, of course, known that they should have been asking into questions with political implications. Over 40% certainly didn't respond. Also, they weren't in diapers. How have the non-responders to regret surgery? Thanks to Alejandro Caraballo for saying, we have these powerful statistical tools called standard deviation and standard error to estimate the possibility of errant results, but Matt is too stupid to understand that. Which is why you don't read the study in, quote, isolation. Here's a systematic review that found regret rates were extremely low at 1% for trans people who had surgery across 27 studies and 7,928 patients. What we call a meta-study. Yes. Also, even if you want to say that, hey, by the way, of the respondents, 40% of the respondents didn't say, yeah, so of those respondents who did respond then, what was the, oh, all of them except one, all of them found it, okay, well, yeah. I would say that you could make an argument in the opposite direction, right? You could say, well, the respondents who didn't respond, that could be for political reasons. There could be some political reason why they didn't respond, Matt Walsh, you know, but that doesn't take away the fact that if you looked at the sample size of people who did respond, that's where we have it. Matt Walsh has also said things like white men are being erased.
It's not about merely pointing out a double standard. Okay, because this is not just a double standard. It's about pointing out a real and extremely successful effort to demonize a certain group of people and to erase their achievements. We hear so much about groups of people being erased and their achievements. That's only actually happening to one group, and that is white men. Okay? The only group of people that in this country that are being erased in any kind of meaningful way, historically, are white men. And then people that are being erased in another sense, women by the trans activists. So those are the two ways in which people are erased in this culture, and but those are also the ways that are never acknowledged. We are not the first society to single out a group this way. We won't be the last. And that's why, you know, we know where it leads, and we know that it doesn't lead anywhere good.
Did Lance already cover the Anna versus Walsh thing? You're not just here for my opinions and jokes and sound effects and impersonations? My witty banter and retorts? What about my geopolitical analysis? What about some of my calls to activism and direct action? You're not here to hear my opinion on plants? On which are the better plants? Yeah, I've got retorts. I retort. They love dramas. I mean, we all do. Come on, who amongst us? I'm not gonna throw fucking stones. I woke up this morning and I was like, ah! Oh shit, no way. Awesome. Oh, I can't wait to talk about this later today. Hell yeah. It was nice. You know why? Because up until that point, I was the fucking target. And you're like, Lance, it happened like at the end of July, like July 19th or something. You're right. She hadn't tweeted since then. I still have people being like, why is Anna still tweeting about you? I was like, no, she's not. She's not, by the way. It's just that she hadn't tweeted since July 19th. It was like, she went after me with like 3 or 4 tweets and then just didn't really use Twitter. And then comes back to Twitter at midnight, and all of a sudden it's just like, yeah, fuck you, Vosh. Yeah, you pill-popping junkie. Fucking fuck you, addict. Piece of shit. Like, maybe, and I don't know if I'm the only one saying this, maybe Twitter is not the best tool for you to communicate, broadly speaking, to other people. It would seem that when you entertain the arena of Twitter, it brings out the strangest of you. And I don't know why this is going on. Oh Lord, then what did I miss? Did you not see this? Oh man, it's maybe it's just the way the algorithm, see, it's the algorithm that feeds me the drama, not me seeking the drama out, but it's the algorithm that's been definitely fucking, hey Lance, guess what this fucking person is saying, and guess what that person is saying, and I'm just like, because it's not me. I get to sit back and laugh. It's much nicer when it's not you. I'll be honest. A lot of people say that I create drama in order to like get the clicks or the clout or whatever. Nah, I love when it's happening to someone else, and I can just sit back and watch it and just enjoy the fucking sweet taste of the popcorn, right? Because otherwise I'm still eating the popcorn, but then it's like, you know, I'm nervously eating it out of fucking stress eating, because I'm just like, oh my god, look at all these people fucking saying the worst possible shit about me. I'm not huge on it. I do not like having Anna Kasparian you know, quote tweeting, you know, things and taking things I said out of context or manipulating what I've said so that I get a whole bunch of people it's mostly center to center right, by the way. I'll just say this. None of the lefties I've ever seen are popping up in my replies. It's all these fucking, hey, it's the same people who get mad at me when fucking Sargon of Akkad gets mad at me. It's the same people who get mad at me when Destiny gets mad at me. Look at that. Interesting how this is the way it's working out. But yeah, there you have it. I'm cis and I don't pay much attention, but isn't Voss more racist than he is transphobic? I'm not going to get into layers of this, okay? We have to be able to just analyze this from today and ignore the totality of everything everyone else has ever said. That's how I do my analysis. You know that. That's why I'm great for it. I live in isolation, in a bubble, you see. Yeah. We're still talking about Matt Walsh, by the way. One last thing, just if you didn't know this, because I want to put a white supremacist bow on Matt Walsh at the end of all this bullshit. If you don't think Matt Walsh is a straight up white supremacist, listen to the way he speaks when he's not on the Daily Wire.
Mind you, but if they don't exist in a vacuum down there. They're just if there's kind of like a portal from another.
I'm actually here because of Anna's mention of you, so I'm here to stay. Sonder Dragon. You know what? That's a beautiful thing to see. Yeah, I got one person who started watching me because they disagreed with Anna's take on me. Because Anna said the exact same things that I said, almost verbatim, when it came to abortion. And then she bought into Tim Pool's framing of it. Because just like Birth in Person, ain't nobody fighting on the behalf of, like, we demand that women are to have abortions at the 9th month. That is the demands of the left. But when you're framing a question in such that they want to frame it this way, by the way, it's the purpose of the baby guillotine thought experiment, right? You want to get a soundbite, and then you can use that soundbite and replicate it over and over. So, hey, there's Lance. He's the one who thinks that women should smoke crystal meth and then have abortions at the 9th month. That's his strategy. And that's what he thinks the left wants to do, is basically get pregnant women to smoke meth and have abortions and stuff. And it's like, no. I personally would oppose that and be morally opposed, as well as I would say out loud, yes, I object to those actions. Now, does that mean that I believe I, as a man, have the right to take away women's bodily autonomy? The answer would be no. I still think women should have access to medical care if they need it in the 9th month, because that is exactly what it is when they get abortions in the 9th month. They're less abortions and more medical procedures to save the life of either the mother or something, or the child, and in which case it is a tragedy. That's it. There is no women get bored at 9th month and have abortions, you know, and there's no leftist fighting on that behalf. But you could frame it in such, if you were dishonest, you could take that little clip and be like, I got you here. Look at that. Yeah, there's Lance. He's the one who thinks women should smoke meth and have 9th month abortions. And said, nah, that's not me.
Universe or something that is letting people through, they're right at ground zero of the portal, so they're going to get everything first, but then we're going to get we're going to eventually get it too. Yeah. So a 213% increase in Hispanic children in the next 40 years. That's insanity. That's actually the next 30 years.
That's like the current rate, right? Like, you know, if they do.
Hold on, we have the technology to make this so much better now. Yeah, I'll play this so you hear how bad it is.
And we've heard this before. Maybe this is more dramatic than what we've heard before. When no one's actually said it's over for us, we're done. Our race of people, we're singing our swan song right now. We're the last of the Mohicans, the last of the Anglos. He's the first person to jump to that conclusion. But all the studies we've seen, and just when you look around yourself, that's what you see. Now, there might be some people that say, well, okay, so what? Big deal. It's not, you know, still people living here. So maybe the races mix a little bit, and it's no big deal. We all move on. Well, it is because we're all dying off. That's what the problem is. It's not that we're just, you know, as the Mexicans come in, we magically meld with them and become like them. It's not like that. It's that we are dying off.
just like any other species of animal does. We're dying, and the way that animals, there's two ways that animals die off. Well, three ways. One's disease, two is deforestation, or they lose their habitat, which, okay, look at us. And then the third one is that they stop reproducing. And usually all three of those things happen kind of a vacuum down there. They're just
I made it into an MP3. Copy the MP3. All right.
simultaneously, and that's what's happening with us. The extinction of the Anglo-Saxon race is just like that.
His solution, by the way, is impregnating 16-year-olds, right? Like, he's got this whole video where he talks about how 16 is the ideal age of
the ideal fertility age of 16-year-old girls.
So he's mad not that 16-year-olds are getting impregnated, but that they're not married. So he's fine with 16-year-olds getting impregnated by fully grown adults, by the way, which is technically raping children. He's fine with that as long as they put a ring on it afterwards. That's his big requirement, is, yeah, put a ring on that. So now, let us use AI. It is done. Are you ready for this, everybody? Using technology to expose baddies.
Mind you, but they don't exist in a vacuum down there. They're just if there's kind of like a portal from another universe or something that is letting people through, they're right at ground zero of the portal, so they're going to get everything first, but then we're going to we're going to eventually get it too. So a 213% increase in Hispanic children in the next 40 years. That's insanity. That's actually the next 30 years.
That's like the current rate, right? Like, you know, if they do, you know, magically put up a wall or something of that nature, that number would probably come down a little bit, wouldn't it?
Yeah, at the current.
Animate this? You know, I can actually do that thanks to Adobe Animation. I'm just gonna do all this weird shit right now. Okay, hold on. I can actually make an animation out of this. What should we do to be Matt Walsh? Should Matt Walsh be a hot dog, a baseball, a monster, a duck president, a ninja, a soccer ball, a teacup, a toast, an avocado, a cupcake, a taco? The taco's too cute. I don't use the taco. There's someone who looks just like Matt Walsh, by the way. I could just use the Matt Walsh looking guy and have him in front of, have him in front of a hot dog stand. There we go. Choose an audio file. Desktop, matte enhanced. All right, we're now making an animation out of this. In a couple of minutes, we'll have a fully animated cartoon of Matt Walsh talking about the superiority of the Anglo-Saxon race. Technology is wild. It's absolutely wild, I tell you, you know? Back in my day, we used to have to record things and then animate them frame by frame and draw out the little animations and then connect them. And you couldn't even hear well because the recordings weren't that smooth and all this. And now, boom, like we're already at 27%. This animation is almost complete. Also, what's the purpose of this? What am I ever going to use this for? I can't upload this. It's him giving a white supremacist speech. Oh my God, it's done. Here we go.
Mind you, but they don't exist in a vacuum down there. They're just if there's kind of like a portal from another universe or something that is letting people through, they're right at ground zero of the portal, so they're going to get everything first, but then we're going to we're going to eventually get it too. So a 213% increase in Hispanic children in the next 40 years. That's insanity. That's actually the next 30 years.
That's like the current rate, right? Like, you know, if they do.
Oops. I mean, it's not flawless, but it's pretty fucking good.
You know, magically put up a wall or something of that nature, that number would probably come down a little bit, wouldn't it?
Yeah, at the current rate, that's what they're looking at.
Yeah, I'll edit it and we can do stuff with this. Maybe down the road. I don't know. I don't even know what we're doing anymore. I don't even know the point of any of this anymore. Things have just gone off the rails, you know?
Do you enjoy the Serfs but prefer not to have to use your eyeballs? Many are saying this. Well, we've got the solution for you. It's the Serf Times in podcast form. Available on most major podcasting networks now. If you enjoy it, please consider leaving a good review and feedback because it really helps the show out, apparently, and it's free, just like the podcast.
Thank you kindly to our Lord and Saviors Peyton L. Just and Xander Corvus. Without you, we are nothing. And now, a shout out to our Knights of the Square Table. Amazing Flesh, Anna Loves Riley, Adrian McCarthy, DM Rivera, Doug Cady, Everything Important, Hegbard Celine, Izzy Solidarity, La Media Panza, Matthew Scarborough, Multimondi, Nettle, Omni, Peanut Butter Blonde, Political Papi, Quiet 185, Rachel K, Riley and Anna, Roller Dragon, Kubi, Cernicus, Spinach Monster, Stellar Vision, Sebastian Demmel, Thomas, Trevbot EXE, Lucidry, Words Greenwood, Cheryl Alvarez, Tony Perkins, Thomas, O'Pecker, Travis McClinton, and Victoria Bell. Thank you so much. And a huge shout out to all the other people who make this entire show possible. Without you, it would not exist. If you can support us, please go to patreon.com/theserfs, and even $1 can help unlock all of the little goodies and help make this show entirely possible.